My name is Dr. Shane McCorristine, and I was born in Dublin in Ireland, and I was educated in University College Dublin, and I received my PhD from University College Dublin in 2008, and since then I've worked as a researcher in Trinity College Dublin and in Paris, and at the moment I'm developing a new research project in the Arctic humanities, and that's why I'm at the Rachel Carson Centre. Some of the research questions I've asked myself relate to how the Arctic regions were understood in the 19th century. So one of the main things that I kept coming across in my secondary readings were allusions to the Arctic as an enchanted place, as a fairyland, as a place where dreams occur. So I wanted to try and take some of these statements more seriously than previous scholars have, and actually investigate how such understandings of Arctic place are actually crucial to our contemporary understandings of Arctic place. I'm working on the premise that the Arctic as a place in the 19th century is understood as an other world, or as a special place, as an extreme landscape, and I think this is because of three reasons. The first is geographical. The Arctic is an unknown geographical terrain. It's represented on maps as a giant blank space. So there's a huge cultural impetus to actually voyage to these regions in the name of geography, in the name of cartography, to actually map a place that hasn't been mapped before by European people. Secondly, there's a distinct environmental theme in Arctic interests. This is a very confined, this is a very isolated, and this is a very cold environment. And when European explorers enter this region, they're entering a region that they're ecologically not adapted to be in. They're taking their own agendas, they're taking their own cultural contexts with them into a new landscape that they find alternately interesting, that they find picturesque, but they also find it quite malevolent, dangerous, and in some respects the landscape becomes a representation of evil, a sort of a negative reflection on what the human body can do in a landscape. And the third reason is phenomenological. Strange things happen to European explorers in the Arctic. So my premise is that if we actually look to what explorers and what interested people were saying about their experiences in the Arctic, I think we can find out a lot of things about how the landscape was thought of as a spiritual place. So you have people maybe feeling presences, you have people having mirages, having optical illusions, having hallucinations, and feeling that the landscape that they're traveling through is an animate landscape that has human and non-human personalities embedded in this landscape. So working on those three premises, my hypothesis is that if we look at the Arctic as a Victorian otherworld, we can find interesting historical stories that will tell us about how the Victorians were imagining the blank spaces in their culture. And one of the main findings that I think will come out of this is that there were many ways of understanding and learning about place, and some of these ways of understanding were highly contentious and were dissenting from the established viewpoints. So, for instance, there were a lot of supernatural ways of understanding landscape, such as mesmerism, such as animal magnetism, and such as spiritualism. And all these ways of understanding the Arctic place were dissenting from established views, which were scientific, which were geographical, which were cartographical. So what we have is an interesting case in boundary disputes. So we have people who are arguing for specific ways of understanding place, and we have people arguing that there are traditional ways of understanding place. And if we actually go to the sources, we can see how rich these contests were.